Alright everybody, what is going on? I'm back again, and it's taken me a little while, but I'm finally here. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Switch version of Assassin's Creed Revelations from the Ezio collection. And sorry for the delay, there's been a lot of reasons behind it. First of all, there's a lot of subject matter here, which is why I wanted to start with Revelations. And frankly, there's so much to talk about among all three versions, and frankly, they handle a little bit differently. On the Switch. All three of them have a different kind of level of performance. So for that reason, I'm breaking them up into three different reviews. Revelation I'm going to start with first, and you'll see why by the end of it, because there's a lot more to talk about here, a lot more to go through. I know it seems counterintuitive, but when the games first came out over 10 years ago, they all, even though they ran on the same engine, the engine was actually updated fairly substantially between each yearly release, and they really do handle a lot differently, despite being released pretty close to each other. And some of that seems to carry over into the Switch. And Revelations, quite frankly, being the most demanding of the three, does catch a few short ends in a few ways. And I do want to talk about those ways here. So for that reason, I'm breaking it up a little bit. So let's go ahead and dive into things. First of all, I want to make everything perfectly crystal clear. I am playing in docked mode at a full 1080p, and that is substantial to note, and you'll find out why in a little bit. And it looks like the way that Ubisoft did this is they took the assets from the PlayStation 4 version, and again, when I say PS4, I'm being all-inclusive, I'm talking about the Xbox One as well, and tried to port it over to the Switch, and the results are, for the most part, pretty astonishing. You know, the PS4 version, when it came out, I thought that it had a lot of great things to offer. I didn't really feel like it pushed the system pretty hard, but it's pretty remarkable that they managed to, and very ambitious actually, that they brought it over and managed to make it look pretty close to the PS4. It's got the same assets, and there was a lot of stuff they built from scratch for the PS4 version that they brought over here, and for the most part, it holds up pretty well. There's some caveats that I'm going to get into, but they really did well, and I'm going to show you some prime examples. And for the most part, the way I do this, I'm really going to be showing you raw gameplay footage, and I'm really not going to be talking about the 360 version very much, because this thing just smokes everything. It completely annihilates the 360 and the PS3 version in all ways, so I'm not going to really go too deep in the 360. I'm mostly going to be doing this for the sake of comparing it to the PS4. Talk to her real quick.
Fight for an honorable cause,
Let's see how the cutscene
not
plays.
just your life.
And you see, it really is pretty close to the PS4 version. The shadowing's not quite as good. You see a little bit of pixelation there, the shadowing, and the anti-aliasing doesn't hold up quite as well as the other consoles, which is inherent of the Switch. That's just very natural. And I'm also going to be grading this with the Switch's hardware in mind. I'm not one of those reviewers that say, oh my god, why isn't this in there? Why isn't that in there? Well, I'm sorry, the Switch just doesn't have the horsepower of the other consoles. That's like complaining why a base PS4 can't display 4K images. It just doesn't have that capability. Okay. I'm going to go to the Galata Tower, and I really want to do a quick comparison with the PS4, because there's a lot of great stuff I want to say about it, but there's also a few caveats I want to make everybody aware of. So we're going to make our way to Galata Tower. And again, I'm going to go through the city, kind of let you get a feel for everything, see how this thing handles performance-wise. It does stay, for the most part, pretty close to 30. During some more intense parts, it does drop to 24 and 23. And, you know, the PS4 pretty much for the entire game holds pretty steady at 30 frames a second. This one tries to meet that mark, and it does okay. It does pretty well, but there's certainly a lot of sections where it will stumble and it'll falter down to 24 and 23, which isn't super horrible. I mean, it's not game-breaking. You can definitely notice it, but the engine does a pretty good job of recovering once it hits that particular mark. Oh yeah, before I forget also, if you want my opinion right off the bat, I would give this particular version of Revelations Not the entire collection, just this particular version. This game, an 8 out of 10. Frame of reference, I gave the PS4 version an 8.5. I'm not knocking the frame rate, because I think that's about as well as a Switch can do. But the big problem is, and I'll see if I can trigger it during our gameplay, I may or may not be able to, there's just a handful of glitches. And I'm not talking about old glitches. Every glitch from the 360 and the PS4 version are all still in here. I don't really care about that. It's in the original version. I ain't counting it against it. Problem here is there were a few new glitches I encountered, especially with the audio. There was a lot of desyncing problems, and it actually gets worse when you're in handheld. You know, you'll punch somebody, and then 2 seconds later you'll hear the punching effect, or you just won't hear the audio, period. So there's a lot of different audio issues, and it really seems to get worse the longer you play it and the hotter the system gets, and especially in handheld mode, it really appears fairly frequently, especially if you've got a lot going on. But to me, that was one of the biggest caveats, is those new sound glitches. But I'm even kind of hesitant to knock the game for that, even though I am, because I think the big problem with that is, and what's causing that, is the fact that I think the Switch graphics card gets so overwhelmed at some points, it has more processes than it can handle. And when it gets overwhelmed, it gets hot, it can't fire off the sound effects as quick as it needs to keep up with the visuals. So I think that could be a possibility. But anyway, I want to give you a real quick view up here so you can really see the incredible draw distance this thing has. You can see the background, you can see the Hagia Sophia, you can see the river, you can see everything. It's actually pretty impressive. It's got some amazing draw distance. A lot of detail. You can see some of the reflections in the water. You can see the ships. You can see the details in the background. And just to give you a frame of reference as to how impressive this is, I'm going to switch over to a screen grab I've got here from the PS4 version. And the coloring is a little bit different because this screen grab was from the evening. So it's going to be a little bit darker, but you can see the quality isn't too far off. I mean, it's not super stark of a difference. You know, I mean, the draw distance is pretty much equal. You know, the PS4's got a few more details in it, and maybe some of the lighting effects their lighting's pretty close, but there's just not, in my mind, a substantial difference in quality. I mean, you look at it, it's incredibly close, which is really, really impressive. So despite some of its shortcomings, you know, especially with those glitches I just previously mentioned, I really think they did an incredibly good job taxing on the Switch's hardware. And this game really, truly does, I think, push the Switch to the breaking point. You know, I've got some equipment in my computer that gives me a readout of different statistics, you know, internal processes within the Switch. And this thing maxes out just about everything at 100%. Like, hang on a second. Okay, like one part of the gameplay I recorded, the CPU was running at 97, the RAM was at 91%, graphics chip was running at 93, and I wasn't even doing all that much. That was from Cappadocia, when I had a bunch of NPCs running around. So this thing is pretty much firing on all cylinders. You know, Black Flag and Assassin's Creed 3 versions on the Switch ran pretty hot. You know, they did push the hardware, but I think this one just takes to the absolute breaking point. They really, really, I think, used every little ounce of power they possibly could from the Switch. And I think they really hit a wall with Revelations, and I think there's just a lot of different times when it gets a little bit too taxed. I think that's where a lot of the glitches come from, is the hardware just being overwhelmed. And I'm hopeful for a patch to iron out a couple things, but I think there's just some stuff that really isn't going to be ironed out just because it can't be ironed out. I think that the Switch was absolutely pushed to its breaking point with this game. Now, AC2 and Brotherhood do run a little bit better, a little bit smoother on the Switch, given that they're not quite as taxing on the hardware as this game is. So that is just something to be aware of while you play through it. And during some moments when it gets really, really overwhelmed, and I'm going to try to see if I can trigger the circumstances for that to appear, but basically it looks like they programmed some kind of graphical buffer into the game when it gets just extremely overwhelmed. You know, there's a lot of NPCs on screen, and you can see the frame rate's taking a little bit of a hit with all these NPCs and all the surrounding buildings. So we dipped, let me see what my computer says. Okay, we took a small dip to 26 frames per second. So not horrible, and it recovered pretty quickly. But that gives you kind of an idea. Alright. Okay. But it does get to the point where it pixelates, and it pixelates really bad to go ahead and maintain the frame rate and to keep the game from crashing. Which I'm okay with. You know, if you got to make those graphical sacrifices to keep the game running, it's fine. And it's activating a little bit here. I don't know if you all can tell, but if you look at the roofs, they're anti-aliasing real bad. They're taking a little bit of a graphical hit. Let's see if I can trigger it. Okay. Like the frame rate's dropping. You take a look, everything is kind of dropping image quality-wise. And the shadowing's taking a hit, you know, everything is starting to look like an NES game there in the background. It's doing that, of course, to maintain the quality, maintain the performance, which I'm actually okay with. Given the Switch's limitations and how big this city is, it really does take a toll on the Switch hardware. And it recovers fairly quickly. I mean, you look around, alright, see the roof looks really good, Ezio looks good. And see, it's right back to normal, just very, very quickly. But it does insert those protective measures whenever the game gets overwhelmed. So just be aware of it. And it actually does get a whole lot worse in handheld mode. The handheld mode, it takes a massive hit, even though it's only 720p. That little graphical buffer I showed you there pops up a lot more in handheld mode. And it really, truly does show a lot worse, even though it's on a smaller screen. So you do want to be aware of that caveat, that it does take a little bit of a hit when it goes into handheld mode. But you can see here, for the most part, it's a pretty clean image. And it's pretty good that it can really keep a pretty steady pace with the PS4 version. Alright, see, the buffer kicked in again. There was a lot of pulsating there for a minute. But again, it lasts only a second. Not too shabby. Alright, see? A lot of good detailing on the wall. Shadowing holds together really well. Tiles look good. Sky looks good. Alright, that was going to be my error. Get back up there.
Why are you here?
Ah. Alright, see, some slight pulsating, but not bad. I mean, the wildlife is really good. The birds are really pleasant. They're not chipping in and out. You got a lot of reflections in the water. A lot of detail in the buildings. Draw distance is great. I mean, there's really, truthfully, when you factor in the Switch's hardware, there's not too much to complain about this. I mean, aside from, you know, some of the audio glitches I encountered, and the fact that I do wish they would have cleaned up some of the old glitches, but there really, truly isn't too much I'm dissatisfied with, and nothing that hopefully a patch won't be able to fix, assuming the hardware will allow it. And I think there's a possibility that what we see is what we might possibly just have. They may not be able to fix it. They may have possibly pushed the switch as hard as they could have. But it's great. Lighting's great. And the lighting's almost on par with the PS4. It's just very, very slight little differences with the lighting data between the two versions. I captured an image. I'm not really sure it's going to convey the differences very well, but I'm still going to try anyway. Alright, if you look here from the, again, this is very hard to tell. If you look from the screen grab from the PS4 version, lighting's a little bit better, and it processes better, but it's really hard to tell the differences between the two. It's not super substantial. It reflects a little bit better, as you can see from this image, but it's not a super stark difference.
There should be a law prescribing such things.
Alright, I've done enough running around in circles, so I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is replay a memory, and I want to show you how well this handles cutscenes and how well some of the face models. I swear, some of the facial models on the Switch I think will look even better than the PS4, but I will let you all make that determination. Alright, so again, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to let this cutscene roll, and I'm going to shut up and let you observe it, and I'll post a few images after it's done playing.
The Templars have retaken their archive on Cyprus. Abbas sent no reinforcements. It was a massacre.
Oh my god.
Maria, when we left Masyaf 10 years ago, this order was strong. But all that progress has been undone.
Abbas must answer for this.
Answer to whom? The assassins obey only his command now.
Resist your desire for revenge, Altair. Speak truth, and they will see their error.
He executed our youngest son, Maria. He deserves to die.
Perhaps. But if you cannot win back the Order by honorable means, its foundation will crumble.
You are right. 30 years ago, I let passion overtake my reason. And it caused a rift that has never fully healed.
Speak reasonably.
Okay, that looked pretty good, didn't it? Not too bad at all. Here's a screen grab from the PS4 from that same cutscene. I gotta be honest with you. I think Maria's face actually looked even better on the Switch, and the same for Altair. It looks good on PS4, but I don't know. It just looked more natural, more alive. I don't know. Maybe it's my mind just playing tricks on me, but I swear it looked better on the Switch. And it's probably the only time I'm going to mention the 360. It's almost pointless to do so, but you look here from the 360, I mean, that looks unbelievably rough. Maria looks like she's just a walking corpse. I'll tell you, it don't look too much better. So, yeah, that's why I'm not even bothering spending much time on the 360. It just doesn't even compare. But yeah, it plays cutscenes surprisingly well. I'm actually pretty proud of it. Alright. So we'll head on back to Istanbul. And if you'll notice, the loading screens are nowhere near as bad as 360. I think it probably matches the PS4. I don't think it's any faster or any slower. They load about the same, it seems. So nothing worth pointing out there. Alright. Good. Just as I was hoping. Alright, so let's take a look at the evening. I was trying to get the night sky activated because there was a few things I wanted to go over there, but this works as well. The Switch, basically, when they created the PS4 version, they redid a lot of the atmosphere for Revelations. They altered the evening and especially the nighttime skylight and the environment. And Istanbul has like a real particular orange hue to it, and a lot of places in the Middle East do during the sunset. And this really does a good job capturing it. On the 360, you really don't see this distinction. I said I wasn't going to mention the 360, but here I go. But this pretty much goes toe-to-toe with the PS4 version almost. Little small cuts were made on lighting data, but really not that stark of a change. And it just looks very beautiful. Like that evening sky you see right there, that was actually brand new to the PS4. They ripped out the skyline in the old version and replaced it, and they carried it over into the Switch, which is fairly impressive. See, it looks really good. If I ever figure out how to capture footage in handheld mode, I'll be able to show you guys some of that, but handheld mode holds up pretty good too during scenes like this, aside from the issues that I mentioned. Come on. See, it looks great. It really, really brings the environment alive. And in a way that really is pretty much the same as the PS4. There we go. That's what you get for getting in the way of my review. There you go. Just everything. The light reflects off of the water during the sunset. It just looks great. Okay. So really those are the only big caveats. It looks pretty close to the PS4, and they did a phenomenal job pulling their talents together to squeeze really everything they could out of the Switch to make this thing run and look good as it possibly could. Again, a couple of brand new glitches here and there, and especially when you're in handheld mode and it's been running for a while and the system's running really hot, and especially if for some reason you're playing in a hot environment, you're going to get some pretty decent graphical dings. So that tells me that they really maxed out the hardware on the Switch as much as they possibly could have. And so, again, that's why I'm not hitting it too hard, and I'm not really... I'm not sure if hopeful is the right word, but I'm really not expecting too much in the way of patches, at least with the Revelations, because I really think it's more of a hardware issue than them really trying to iron some stuff out. I think they pretty much have maxed out what they could with this thing. Okay. Alright, hopefully we'll go to night sky here in just a second. There's a couple of other things I want to show you guys. Okay, here we go. Maybe about another minute. The night sky should pop up. Basically, what an amazing job they did. Okay. Alright, this is another great thing that they improved in the PS4 that they managed to bring over here. You see it's starting to turn to nighttime now, and it has a really sort of, you know, kind of grayish look to it, but a very unique kind of moonlight look to it that the city has in actual real life. And look really good in the PS4, and they emulate it pretty well here, where the city's gray, but it's also well lit from the moonlight. It actually looks pretty good. Okay, and the stars are starting to come out. It's going to look a little bit better in a minute. But same kind of thing. They actually, in all three versions, on the Switch and the PS4 as well, they ripped out the night sky and completely replaced it with what you see here. And again, they were able to bring it over from the PS4, and it's pretty awesome. And as soon as it gets a little bit darker, those stars up there will really pop out. And it actually is a very beautiful image. And it was something that the 360, the PS3 could not display at all. It actually looks kind of fake now if you go back and look at the night sky in the old versions. But this looks good. And see how it kind of grays out, but still very well lit, and especially some of the houses in the background. It just looks very good. And you see even the Hagia Sophia, you can see a lot of details. See that moonlight reflection on there? It looks really good. Hang on. Alright, see what I mean? It's dark, but not really. You're still getting plenty of reflection from the moon. Very lifelike, a lot of clouds. Alright, there's a nice sky. It's starting to pop out a little bit. There we go. And again, that was a completely new, redone thing they did for the PS4, and they brought it over here, which is a big plus. It really definitely helps with that immersive environment, especially for a city as beautiful as Istanbul. It definitely helps out. And there's Crescent Moon. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to go through all that and show you guys Revelations just because, again, it probably was the roughest looking, and I use rough very loosely because it does still handle well. And it's still an easy game to recommend, just with a little bit of caveats, understanding the Switch's hardware, and just understanding some of the rough edges you might be presented with. But maybe we'll get a patch, maybe not. I still have no problem giving this port of the game a straight 8 out of 10, and I'm probably looking at giving AC2 and Brotherhood versions of on the Switch at least the same score, and it may actually be a little bit higher for the two of them. But this is really as bad as it gets on the Ezio collection. It's really well done. They maxed out the Switch as well as they could have, and it's a fantastic way to revisit Ezio's adventure on the go. And I'm overall very pleased, despite some of the shortcomings. I really am happy with it. It was very ambitious, and they overall did a pretty good job making this thing run on the Switch. That pretty much concludes it. If you look in the description, if you're really curious for whatever reason, I'll post some gameplay footage from the 360. If you need to go down memory lane and just re-experience that for whatever reason, for comparison's sake, I'll also post my reviews for AC2 and Brotherhood when they become available, so if you don't see them, they're not there yet. And if for some reason this thing gets patched, I will also do a re-review, and that will also go in the description. So if they're not there, they don't exist. And as of recording time, I have not finished my reviews for Brotherhood or AC2. But just understand, if you just really gotta know right now without any details, they do run just as well as this, and in a lot of instances they run a little bit better on the Switch. So again, what you're seeing here in Revelations is as bad as it gets, and that's definitely a good thing. So that's pretty much it, guys. I might leave the camera on a little bit longer, just do a little bit more running around if you're not satisfied, want to watch a little bit more. But that concludes it. If you have any questions, sound off, and as always, I will answer them as quickly as I can. But that really kind of covers it. So I'm going to go ahead and kill the mic and just run around a little bit more. You can stick around if you want, but that's pretty much it. Revelations hits 8 out of 10 on the Switch for me, and that is with me judging it with a little bit of harshness on some of the new glitches that were around. But nothing is game-breaking, and it's definitely not unplayable. It's a great game, so I very much encourage you to go out, pick it up, and relive one of the greatest games to have ever been made. As always, appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon for the Brotherhood and AC2 reviews. Thanks again.
You're getting so cute.
I weep to see our fair city brought low by these assassin dogs. I shake in anger, knowing they are free. Let us work witness.
Not the bashful type, is he?
Pain accuses.
I'm only trying to feed my family. My feet! My feet!
Another misguided thought.
Silver!
Not be fooled by tall tales of honor, false notions of justice, and rumors of righteous revenge. These mad killers are just that and no more. Whoever these mad assassins may be, they rip the peaceful fabric of the city in passing and leave only misery in their wake. There is no law but God's for cold killers such as the assassins. I say, carry out his will. Find the assassins and...
Must be a mercenary.
Even Rashid himself could have treated you no better. I make use of all his wisdom.
The Sultan requires the assistance of you, brave citizens.
Amantan!
Protect the
Not living peace!
Do the word to innocent bystanders! Have any words to
Madman! Amantan!
I don't want to die! Stay out of my way!
Aha! Now we have you!
God help me!
Is there a race or something?
Alright guys, I think I'm going to go ahead and kill it for now, but again, watch the description for the AC2 and the Brotherhood reviews, or if you feel so inclined, you can subscribe and you'll know when they pop up. But thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see y'all again very shortly.